Here's your podcast script. As Europe sweats through a brutal heat wave, some politicians are talking about air conditioning, not climate action. That's the headline from a New York Times report this week, and it cuts right to the heart of a political fight playing out across the continent. Here's what's happening. Temperatures across southern England and Wales have been soaring, with London nearing 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Schools closed. Trains were cancelled or delayed. Some hospitals halted elective procedures. London's ambulance service reported its highest ever number of life-threatening emergencies in a single day. And the opening session of London Climate Action Week, a conference literally focused on extreme heat, was called off because of the extreme heat. Meanwhile, just days before those temperatures peaked, Kemi Badenoch, the leader of Britain's Conservative Party, was up in Aberdeen, Scotland, telling a crowd that the war on oil and gas must end and calling for Britain to drill more in the North Sea. Badenoch has described herself as a net-zero skeptic. Her party's energy spokesperson pushed back on criticism, arguing that pursuing net-zero targets while raising energy bills and losing North Sea tax revenue doesn't make sense either. But the timing was, to put it mildly, striking. And Britain isn't alone. Across Europe, heat-related deaths are already piling up. Italy has reported at least 5 deaths, including outdoor workers and a homeless man. In France, at least 40 people have drowned, many of them teenagers swimming in unsupervised areas as people desperately try to cool off. Everyone agrees something has to be done. The disagreement is over what? Increasingly, the answer from right-wing politicians has been air conditioning. It's a short-term fix that's easy to sell, and it sidesteps the harder conversation about why the heat is getting worse in the first place. In France, Marine Le Pen, leader of the National Rally Party, pledged on Friday that if elected president she would launch a massive air conditioning plan, starting with the most vulnerable populations. She's also claimed that air conditioning units don't actually make global warming worse, a claim the article pushes back on directly. Modern units are greener than older ones, but they still consume electricity, pump hot air outdoors, and put massive strain on aging power grids. Here's where the politics get interesting. In Northern Europe, some left-wing and Green parties have historically opposed air conditioning in favor of architectural solutions, better insulated buildings, more green spaces, more trees. But this week's heat is forcing a reckoning on that position too. The Belgian city of Ghent, run by center-left politicians, actually published advice on its municipal website this week telling residents that the best air conditioner is a tree. After the Times reached out for comment, the city quietly updated that language. And across the political spectrum, the shift is visible. France's Green Party leader said she was breaking a taboo by admitting some places can no longer do without air conditioning. London's Labour mayor called for AC to be installed in schools, offices, and hospitals. Even the co-president of the European Parliament's Green Group said some air conditioning is now necessary alongside longer-term solutions. What makes Europe's situation distinct from the United States is that there's still broad political consensus in favor of climate action. A Eurobarometer survey from last year found that about 85% of Europeans consider climate change a serious problem. Research also suggests that extreme heat events can actually increase support for green parties. A 2025 study out of the University of Hamburg found that abnormally high temperatures in Germany produced a small but meaningful uptick in Green Party support. So while some politicians are leaning into short-term fixes and fossil fuel talking points, the underlying public sentiment across Europe remains firmly in favor of addressing the root cause even as the continent literally burns. This is a story about the gap between the urgency of what's happening outside and the pace of what's being decided inside, and that gap, this week, cost lives.